Let's talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't know why, but maybe we'll flush this out. This team absolutely lulls me to sleep. I have done the Miami Dolphins episode, pre-schedule release, the Jacksonville Jaguars episode, did that day of the release. We have a full Tampa Bay Buccaneers schedule. I'm not going to break down every single game. I'm just going to give you an overview on how I feel about the team going into the 2026 season and what bet I would be willing to make on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't know why this team puts me to sleep. Of the three teams that I have done preview episodes on, this has been the toughest for me to sit down and convince myself through waves of ADD to just hammer out some notes, try and flush out how I feel about this team going into the season. This has been the biggest struggle, really the only struggle, because I'm just not enthused. Todd Bowles really doesn't do it for me on the podium. That's not enough to drive home a level of boredom. I think it's because of what they've been for the last few years. They have been, since Tom Brady left, they've been 8-9, 9-8, 10-7, and 8-9 over the last 4 seasons. I like Baker Mayfield. He's a good quarterback, and he was last year was a down year, relatively speaking, based on what he was able to produce in 2024. If we're comparing him to that, but still, he's one of the better quarterbacks in this league. Their offense just felt so vanilla, and these records over the last 4 years are as vanilla as it gets. You can't go 500 in a 17-game schedule anymore, but they go about as close as you possibly can up to that line. They hit the playoffs in 3 of those 4 years, but all exits after at most one single playoff win. They won their last game of the 2025 season in a game that they had to win against the Carolina Panthers, still wound up missing the playoffs because of some tiebreakers. But prior to that game against Carolina, they had rattled off 4 straight L's and 7 losses in their final 9 games. This team deflated like a balloon. They hired Zach Robinson as their new offensive coordinator. That was an obvious move that Todd Bowles had to make. There was a question at the end of the year as to whether or not he would even keep his job. He did, and I think it's because he's been able to keep this team afloat through this era of transition. They won the Super Bowl with Brady. They were as relevant as you could possibly be, and while that was under Bruce Arians for the most part, Todd Bowles, he is a respectable head coach in the NFL. And the Bucs are an incredibly patient organization. So they're not just going to move off of the guy because it's the easy thing to do. The obvious thing they had to do was replace their offensive coordinator, Josh Grizzard, who just did a horrendous job last year, relieved of his duties at the conclusion of the prior year. Their offensive coordinator, now, this position has been highly relevant to how they have performed offensively. And that's no surprise, but perhaps even more so than some other teams out there, their quarterback is good, but he can be elevated or he can regress based on the guy who's calling plays for him. Liam Cohen was the offensive coordinator 2 years ago when Baker Mayfield had a career year. The rebirth of Baker Mayfield in his first year with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that was Dave Canales as their offensive coordinator. Both guys have moved on to become head coaches elsewhere. Canales with the Panthers and Liam Cohen with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the next quarterback that they coached seemed to elevate in their midst as well. Bryce Young still has a lot of room to grow, but last year with them making it to the playoffs, that was the best Bryce Young that we have seen so far in the NFL. And I don't think I need to convince anybody that Trevor Lawrence finally looks like a star quarterback with Liam Cohen as his head coach and the guy who's calling plays in that offense. Can the Bucs behind Zach Robinson find that level of success for Baker Mayfield, who clearly needs to be elevated by the play calling and by the pieces around him? And that's one of the biggest questions I have about this Bucs team. Is the roster good enough? One of the reasons why I think they fell off a bit last year, Mike Evans dealt with injuries, and Mike Evans is still great, but he is not prime Mike Evans anymore. And we have Chris Godwin, who's clearly lost a step because of the injuries that he has faced. Emeka Egbuka was awesome, but still just a rookie wide receiver. And Bucky Irving took a huge step back. That was the guy that you would think, in terms of the personnel on the field, would lift the ceiling of this offense. But he dealt with mental issues throughout the course of the season. And statistically, I know I had him in fantasy, was pretty run of the mill at the running back position, if not bad. So he's got some question marks around him, and it'll be up to those guys elevating and Zach Robinson calling the right plays in order for this offense to take a lift. Middle of the road strength of schedule this year. They sit at 12th, right behind the Jacksonville Jaguars from a difficulty perspective. They opened the season at Cincinnati. So we are going to learn a lot about this team. We'll learn a lot about the Bengals in that one too. That could be a fireworks show if the Bucs offense can get rolling quickly. A great opportunity against a team that couldn't stop anybody last year or for the last several years. They added Dexter Lawrence. Maybe running against them will be a little bit tougher, but I don't expect the Cincinnati Bengals to be an elite defense this year. After that, they have 4 straight games at home. Somehow, some way, this team got 3 primetime games. So maybe the NFL disagrees with me as far as the Bucs being one of the most boring teams in the NFL. Dallas on Thursday Night Football in week 5. So the Cowboys help get them there. The Chicago Bears, same thing, Sunday Night Football in week 9. And then the Carolina Panthers on Monday Night Football in week 12. And let me just tell you, people are going to be sprinting to their TV or their local streaming service in order to get that one. Todd Bowles feels like a dead man walking. I can make the case for each team in this division, in the NFC South, having way more of a pulse than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Saints are a nice, young, up-and-coming team with a new quarterback in Tyler Shuck, and they added Travis Etienne in the offseason. It feels like they got Jordan Tyson in the draft. They could be a really exciting sleeper team. They were a lot better last year than people anticipated. The Carolina Panthers, defensively, they could be the best team in the division, and the Atlanta Falcons don't write them off too quickly. I know they've got Tua in there now, but I think Michael Penix showed at least flashes of being a potential star quarterback in the league, and they've got to figure out their situation with James Pierce, who dealt with legal trouble in the offseason. But he's a sack master if they're able to. I don't know. He might not ever play again. But the Atlanta Falcons roster is one that I've fallen in love with. All of these teams, Kyle Pitts and his emergence as a viable NFL tight end. There are reasons to like all of these teams in the NFC South, and the Bucs feel like they're not falling off. They're just eroding slowly. So in terms of the over on Hard Rock Bet, sitting at 8.5, juice to the under, but that's the only way that I can look is a Bucs win total under at 8.5. I don't know what to tell you. This team just doesn't do it for me. We'll talk to you again soon.